What does it mean to live life to the fullest, train to your potential, and perform at your best?
Leave nothing on the table. That's a non-negotiable, is that I strive to be better every day. Because if I'm not on top of my game, how's anybody else going to follow me down the road?
Keep demanding more of yourself to live up to that potential and to stay hungry.
Training is progress. You know, when I look at the word training, I think of steps, baby steps to get somewhere that you want to be. And that is basically your life journey.
It's a mindset in itself, man. It's like, it's not just about, I know that for you, a lot of that's about the physical, but we're constantly in training, whether it's growing our skill sets, whether it's growing our physical bodies, whether it's growing our relationships, whatever. And all of that's a training ground. And that kind of goes back to the mindset that we just talked about.
You underestimate yourself and you don't even start. But then once you start, you often surpass what you thought you could do.
Perform at your best, mate. That's sort of what life is all about. You know, want to have the knowledge, want to have the fitness, the health, the ambition and drive that no matter what comes along, when that next phone call comes, I can just say yes. I don't have to worry. Just go and do it.
Hey guys, welcome to this episode of the Live, Train, Perform podcast. I'm your host, Sean Kober, and joining me today is my man, Nic Edgerton. Mate, hit us with your words.
What can I say? Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it. I know we're going to get into some good topics today, so I'm pretty excited for that.
Mate, I was waiting for your catchphrase.
Oh, yeah.
Give me your catchphrase, bro. People want to hear it. The people want to hear you.
Hey guys, Nick here. Hope you're good, hope you're well. Just a quick one for today.
Love it. All right, guys. So I've known Nick for probably, 6, 8, 9 months, something like that. Almost probably coming up to a year. Nick is a leading physique coach. He has been a physique athlete as well. He's coached over 100 top 3 placings in season 2019-20. I'm excited to have a chat to him about his journey and leading up to where he is right now, based out of Phuket, Thailand, and basically going into a number of different topics, but one of the things that I'm excited to talk to you about and I want to dive into is the topic of steroids, because I've had a lot of people talk to me about steroids, being a coach here in Thailand. Obviously, it's quite easy to get here over the counter in some pharmacies. And to be honest, I don't know enough about it to be able to push people in the right direction, give them the information to allow them to make an informed decision. So that's something that we'll kind of round out the conversation with. But prior to that, let's go through your journey, man.
I'll just butt in there before we go ahead. So I've got to say this. Disclaimer, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a scientist. I work from experience and study. So I want to make that very, very clear. Any advice that's given today on the topic that Sean just said, don't take that at face value. I mean, I'll just give you the best advice I possibly can. But again, I'm not a doctor or a scientist.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, sweet, mate. Talk to me about your journey becoming, first of all, a physique athlete, and then progressing through the ranks and ending up where you are now, being a physique coach based in Phuket, Thailand.
Sure. So initially for me, I loved bodybuilding. Growing up, I had all the pictures of the bodybuilders, Arnie on the wall, all things like that. Genetically, I could never be like that. I could never be huge and big like that. But I loved the training. I loved the dieting. I loved learning about the supplements and everything behind it. And then the men's physique division came out. And when that came out...
What year was that?
2012, I believe it first came out. And I first competed in it in 2013. So when that came out, I thought, hey, I could actually do this. Because something that I'm obsessed about when it comes to my training is aesthetics and quality. And bodybuilding, this modern day bodybuilding, doesn't really go with aesthetics and quality. It's all about mass and freakiness, which is cool. But I could never be like that based on my genetics, as hard as I could possibly push it. So when men's physique came out, I was like, wow, I've got an opportunity here to actually kind of be a bodybuilder. You know, I say there's a difference between bodybuilding and physique athletes. So, I've always trained, I've always done that. And I entered my first show in 2013. And I had no idea what I was doing. I had no idea about posing. I had no idea about anything. But I researched as much as I could and came up with the best as I possibly could on the day. Out of about 30 athletes, I came pretty much dead last. Absolutely dead last, but I loved it. And I enjoyed it, and I thought, wow, what an experience. I'd love to do that again. But this time, I'd love to win a show. And I sort of saw the standard, what it was about, and things like that. Fell in love with it. I was still training people outside of that. And then, from there, I sort of progressed. I took 2 years away and thought, I'm going to do this properly. I'm going to hire some really, really good mentors, the best mentors I can find. And I'm going to come back and I'm going to win this show. I'm going to win the show that I came dead last at. That was like my vision, my goal. And so I did that. I went away, I trained, and people saw me progressing in my physique. And then slowly but surely, I still had a job on the outside. I was a construction manager. And slowly on the outside, people were coming to me, asking me for advice. Because growing up, I was always the diet guy in my friendship group. Well, what should I do with this, Nick? I was like the guy to go to. And like I never charged money back then or anything like that. But more and more people were sort of asking me, what should I do here? What should I do here? Hey, can you give me some advice? I'd love to work with you. Can consult, all this sort of stuff.
Because you're already in the industry. You've been working as a coach for a while.
Yeah, but it just started getting busier and busier as I started getting into the competing side of things. Anyway, fast forward, finishing in that show dead last, I then came back 3 years later and I won that show. And that to me was like, I can actually do this. But, that was 3 years of like living under a brick, like living within walls, like vigilant with cardio, sleep, training, nutrition, like everything in like a bubble.
Everything was dialed.
I didn't drink. I didn't go out. I didn't party. I didn't do anything. All I did was work and just focus on my physique. And that was literally it. And that's what I did. I lived like a monk for like 3 years.
So that was the 3 years from coming last to then winning that same competition.
Yeah.
So leading into that first competition, how was the preparation for that first competition into the next 3 years to then winning that competition? Like, was there a stark contrast there?
Yeah. I mean, the first competition, I was winging it basically.
Yeah.
I had no idea what I was doing. Whereas the second one, I hired the best mentor I could. I paid a lot of money for it and we dialed it in like that. And I learned a lot from that. And as you know, when you hire mentors, you sort of learn a lot from them, but then you take it, what works for you and what you know, and you tweak things and adapt things to make it, better in your sort of a way. And then that sort of makes it your own. So that was like the difference between the two, was having a mentor. I could definitely say that.
Yeah, because they can basically, they fucking learnt all the lessons, man.
Yeah.
They can help you,
Exactly,
not shortcut the process, but they're giving you, the tools to be able to implement along the way that's going to push you in the right direction, rather than going throwing shit at the wall and seeing what fucking sticks, man.
Well, I mean, someone I listened to said it best. It's like, you can hire a mentor and get done in 2 months what you do on your own in 20 years.
Yeah.
And that's proof in the pudding. It's like so many people, they don't want to invest. They don't want to spend the money. They just want to do it on their own. They could fast track 5 years of headaches in 5 months.
Yeah.
So I think if you start looking at things more of an investment than an expense like that, you'll be miles ahead of everyone else. Because I don't think many people think like that. So.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So, let's talk about transitioning from being an athlete into becoming a coach. Like, what did that transition process look like?
Yep.
Are you still competing now?
I'd like to again. I haven't competed in 2 years, but I still feel like I've got another run in me.
Yeah. I assume you've been quite busy with coaching.
Yeah.
Because it's hard, man. Like being an athlete and being a coach, like it requires two completely different mentalities,
Definitely,
right?
Yeah.
And if you're investing all of your time, energy, and effort into your athletes, then something has to take a hit, and that's going to come from your own personal growth and experience.
For sure. I feel like it can be done though. I feel like I'm in a position where
with some knowledge and expertise and the fucking runs on the board, you've already walked the path, so you know where you can really dial things in. You know the things that you can sacrifice, the things that you can't compromise on.
Yeah. No, exactly. But it's like, when I go to compete again, I'd hopefully it's next year. Definitely not this year, as I got far too much on. But, and with my athletes, I live vicariously through them, through their preps. I'm living that with them. I'm very, very hands-on with the guys I work with. And so going back, transitioning from athlete to coach, it sort of came naturally. I feel like there's a lot of points in your life where something's giving you a message from the outside world and you've got to dial in on it.
Yep.
It got for me to a stage where I was competing and I was doing well, but I had too many clients approaching me wanting to work with me. But I always had it in my mind that I wasn't going to take on everyone and anyone, because I see a lot of coaches come in and it's a big hype train. It's like, oh, he's the latest and greatest flavor of the month, all this sort of thing. Let's jump on board. And I've had that. And I probably only take on 50% of the people that apply with me. And that's, not due to you know, I could be a hell of a lot richer right now. Don't get me wrong. I could take on everyone and anyone, but that won't last. Hype doesn't last because people will come in, right? They're not that serious. I take their money. They don't get their results. They hurt my reputation.
Exactly.
Whereas if I speak to people first on the phone and it's like, I learn about them. I learn about what they've done. Are they serious? Are they willing to give it their all? Because if they're not willing to give me 100%, I'm not willing to give them 100%. So there's wasting both of our times.
As you said, it's an investment. Yeah. It's an investment from them. If they invest in you, then you're going to invest in them.
Yeah, and I know they're serious as well because I'm not cheap, you know?
Yep.
And so for me, that's what it is. But yeah, so transitioning from athlete to coach, you know, like I said, there was like messages from me saying like, it's time, you know. I quit my full-time job in 2018. Actually, I got sacked, but it was like, that's sort of where it was heading and I was going there. And,
that was one of the messages.
That was one of the messages. Definitely. It was like, okay, it's time. You know, that was one of the messages that said to me, it's time to really put efforts into this coaching. And funnily enough, when I was sacked or I left or whatever it was, you know, my coaching really blew up. People were coming out of everywhere and anywhere because I always brought really good conditioning to the stage. People knew I always never had the biggest amount of muscle, but I always brought crazy conditioning. And up on stage, the game is an illusion. Not the biggest guy wins. You might see the guy backstage and he's double your size, but if he's not conditioned and ripped and in shape, you look bigger than him on the stage because it's that illusion of the, you know, the body.
Let's talk about that for a moment because I know, you know, the majority of people that listen to the podcast and, you know, there's not many bodybuilders, or I say bodybuilders, but, you know, I use that as a generic all-encompassing term. But you spoke about it earlier about bodybuilding and physique. What's the difference between those two?
Sure. I mean, for physique, your main things have to be aesthetics, quality, conditioning, abs, and fullness. Okay, so I can run through them. So aesthetics is your symmetry, your body. You've got to make sure you've got the nice big shoulders, big upper chest, full top shelf, nice and wide, nice and dense, and a tiny waist. In bodybuilding, it's not that important. It's about putting on mass. And if you're going to get to a massive bodybuilder level, your waist is going to thicken, especially, you know, the amount of food and drugs and things you have to put in your body to make that happen. So that's the aesthetics. I mean, Conditioning can be different with physique and bodybuilding. When it comes to bodybuilding, real conditioning gets your glutes and hamstrings super ripped. When people get their glutes and hamstrings super ripped, they can lose fullness in their upper body, which makes them go flat. In men's physique, obviously, our shorts are covering your legs. I'm not saying you don't need to train legs, you do, because if you don't train legs, your upper body doesn't develop as well. But you don't need to get so ripped that you do need to be phenomenal condition, but your glutes don't need to be in. And I see guys sacrificing the look of their upper body to get their glutes in when the glutes aren't on show. So that's sort of the difference in conditioning there. I think ab training is super, super important for physique because that's such a focal point. And it's, again, it's something that people do last as a back burner and sometimes like, I can't be bothered. Do you know what I mean? Whereas abs are abs are so crucial for physique. And in bodybuilding, they don't really hit them as much or as hard, or they do them very, very weighted and heavy, which then thickens the illusion of the weight. It boxes them out, exactly. And then the fullness is similar to the conditioning. You don't want to sacrifice fullness in the upper body to get your legs nice and shredded. And quality. Quality of the muscle is so important. In bodybuilding, it's like being a freaky mass monster. If you come on looking like a freaky mass monster in board shorts, it's not going to work.
Yep.
You know,
so it's more the physique is more of like that beach body look.
I mean, that was the initial. Yeah. That's how it initially came out.
And that's because, like, if you look at the development, because if you look at the development of bodybuilding, man, you know, they had these like, you know, really aesthetic physiques and they weren't super massive dudes. And then over the, you know, 80s, 90s, 2000s, like in the last decade, it's just fucking like just mass monsters, like get as huge as you fucking possibly can. And then obviously, you know, that turns into its own, you know, it turns into its own beast, man. And then people are like, hey, we need to get back to more of the physique stuff because, you know, that's going to be a lot more accessible for people, right?
It is. I mean, it is, people say, you know, it's more achievable. Is it? I don't know. Like it's its own thing in a way. You've got to be really smart and dialed in with your measures. It's not just about eat all the food and bench press as heavy as you can. You've got to be a bit smarter and tweak things and hit things that sort of others won't, you know, and be a bit smart about details because it's all about quality, quality. And a beautiful physique is what you're trying to build. I see a lot of guys, men's physique guys, oh, it's blow up time. Let's get massive. And they get massive and strong and ripped, to dial down and realize that their physique has actually become quite ugly. And then they start not doing as well as what they should. So there's a few differences between physique and bodybuilding. You know, I could go on about that for ages, but I mean, in short and straight to the point, I'd say that's the real difference between the two.
Yep. Something I wanted to bring up there is, you know, when I said it's more accessible, you're probably going to have most ordinary men that want to challenge themselves, compete in competition, is probably going to compete in physique, right?
Initially, Initially. If they're like me and they're not someone that can physically get massive, then yeah, absolutely.
You say that, but fucking look at the size of you, bro. You look like a tank next to me.
Yeah, but then, like I said, I'm one of, when I compete, I'm definitely under muscled.
Right.
To guys and I beat guys that are way bigger than me because I look bigger than them on stage because of the illusion of being leaner and more hard.
And that's what it is on stage, right? You're literally presenting yourself in the best light possible, and you're going to use angles, you're going to use lighting, you're going to use your posing.
It's mostly conditioning and getting that right, and a lot of people don't. So if you can get that right, it can make you look a hell of a lot bigger.
Yeah, man. So a few things to unpack there. One, like I've obviously seen your Instagram, and you know, when you say you're invested in your athletes, man, like your fucking social media is all about your athletes.
Yeah, pretty much.
You know, which is awesome. I love that, bro. And, you know, that speaks volumes about you as a coach as well, to, you know, be able to draw in the right people. They're going to be looking for a good coach, and you're going to be able to draw in the right people.
It's got to be a right fit.
Yeah.
It's got to be a right fit for both of us, or I'm not interested. I don't care about your money. You know what I mean?
100%. So, Let's talk about that. You know, what are some of the traits that you look for in people that are reaching out to you that want to, you know, join you on in the process through that coaching journey?
Sure. Well, first of all, you know, I ask everyone to schedule a call, and there's a few prompts that they need to follow. So they need to schedule the call and fill in a little questionnaire. If they can't do that,
that's a filter right there.
It's almost a filter. Yeah. If they can't do that properly and what I ask for that, then we may not be a fit. I'll still get on the call with them, you know, because they'll schedule it even if they miss the questionnaire, because I still want to speak to them. And then I can tell, and I just say, look, man, I need your full commitment for the time we're working together. I need you to do everything I say. I'll explain the why with the what, no problem. But if you're not fully committed to this, then we're probably not a fit to work together. So there's other coaches that will happily take your money and send you a plan, and you'll probably follow it 50%.
And probably be cookie cutter as well.
Yeah, well, I'm not interested. You know, I'm not interested. I'm here to work with athletes to, you know, get their best potential. And that's sort of what I do with that. So, I mean, it's, and then I want to hear them on the phone. Like, I don't care if you're genetically gifted. I don't care if you've won 100 shows. I don't care if you're a pro athlete. I couldn't give a shit. I want you to work like you're the underdog. I want you to work like everyone's better than you. I don't care if you're Mr. Olympia or you're a first timer, but you've got to have, I get a lot of, you know, you'd be surprised. I get a lot of messages from like pro athletes, you know, with 100,000 followers. Bro, will you coach me for free and I'll shout you out? I'm just like, no.
Yeah.
There's other coaches that will do that. I don't give a fuck what you've done. I want your work rate. If you've got a good work rate, I'll work with you. And that is simple. And that's pretty much the most thing. But I also want to get along with them when I speak to them on the phone. Like, I'm pretty easygoing. I get along with quite a few people, and I want to make sure I get along with my athletes. So along the way, we've got a good sense of communication with each other.
Because you've got to build that rapport, man.
100%.
And you've got to have that trust, right?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Because, you know, some of these guys, they have competed in a number of shows already. And like, if you're telling them, you know, something that may be against what one of their previous coaches said, then, you know, if they don't follow the plan doesn't work, right?
Yeah. For me, it's as well, it's like, I always ask athletes, like, what's worked for you in the past and what hasn't. And I'll make a list of that. You know, I got lists of pretty much every one of my athletes of things that hasn't worked and things that have. And we put more into the things that have and sort of push away the things that haven't, because you know, everyone's different. And you got to work with athletes. You can't, you know that yourself. You can't just have this same procedure for every athlete. You've got to work with them. And over time, you'll eventually know what's working and what's not. So
yeah. And that's the thing, man. Like, as coaches, we are looking at principles, right? And the methods that we use with each athlete or each client is going to be completely different. As long as we're kind of sticking within these parameters.
For sure.
You know, the routes that we take might be a little bit different. You know, the protocols that we use might be slightly different for each person, but, you know, it's principles-based coaching.
Yeah.
That brings me to my next point. Like, you spoke about everything, like, being dialed in and everything, you know, being on point, how much science do you apply to your athletes when it comes to tracking, when it, you talked about weighing, measurements and things like that? Like, how much science do you apply to?
Sure. Not much. I'm not a science guy. Yeah, bro science.
Yeah, but dude, like, this is the thing, man. Like, people rubbish bro science, but fuck, dude, bodybuilders have been like their own guinea pigs for like almost 100 years. Like there's so whilst there might not be some scientific evidence for some things that bodybuilders say, like, they've been fucking doing this stuff for so long, man, and that information's been passed down from generation to generation. And here's the thing, like, a lot of the stuff fucking works.
Yeah.
Maybe how they're explaining how it works is not correct.
Yeah, that's it.
Right.
Yeah.
But man, like, you can't deny that, this information's been passed on from generation to generation to generation. And, for the most part, it gets results.
For sure. I mean, look, I've been doing this 17 years. It's been my obsession for 17 years. It's natural to me to try and continue to develop and all that sort of stuff in the area that I'm trying to get to. I'd never done science. I never looked into it. I can't listen to people talk about science because every time I've got into that sort of cycle, every scientific theory gets proven wrong by another scientific theory. And I end up back at square one.
That's literally what science is.
Yeah, and I keep scratching my head. And then I'm just like, why don't I just go off what I see is working and I'll just continue to go with that. So I try and stay away from the science. We got this meme going around, the Kermit the Frog with it's got the T. That's none of my business. It's like applying studies and science to your competition prep, but you're always in the last call out. It's none of my business.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So, look, I'm not here to trash it. People have their own methods, but for me, experience trumps science. And that's sort of the way I go about it. I mean, look, I'll always listen to people and their opinions, but at the end of the day, we're still going to do things the Physique Academy way. So.
Yeah, I'm assuming there's going to be times where, you are doing something and then there's going to be science that kind of backs that up and supports it.
Yeah,
or it might
probably.
be like a slight different variation of it. And you're like, oh, maybe I'll tweak what I'm doing here to match this science. And, it's not like you're on this end of the spectrum. Like, I don't follow any science. It's kind of an amalgamation of the scientific evidence and anecdotal evidence, right?
Yeah. I mean, I've had a lot of guys, like, because some people love the science thing. I've had a lot of guys that come and work with me, and then they've been like, oh, what you've applied here was very scientific, because I've done my research on that. So I'm like, they kind of interlink. Yeah. Even though I haven't specifically gone, I learned that from science and then took that from there. It was based on my own experience and they worked together. So.
Yeah, that's a great point, man. I didn't go to university to become like an exercise scientist or physiologist or anything like that. Like, I fucking didn't even finish grade 10. Yeah. Didn't even finish high school, and just went to the military, spent 6 years there, got out, did my PT course and then strength and conditioning, nutrition, blah, 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 blah. And that journey has been, through courses, podcasts, books, and application. Working with myself, working with my friends, working with soldiers, working with rugby teams, working with athletes, working with general population clients. Exactly, man.
What you're learning now, you didn't learn on your nutrition course. You learned that from experience.
Yeah, exactly.
All these courses that I've done, I've learned nothing, like next to nothing from them. But I've learned everything from my self-study, from mentors.
That's what I found, man. Like, because one of my friends went to university, he's just starting in the fitness industry, went to university, 4 years, exercise scientist, right? Like, and, you learn the theory at school, but you don't learn any practical application. Whereas I've gone the other way where I, do a course and then I go and apply that for the next 6 months to a year and go, all right, this worked, this didn't work. Yeah. I'm going to tweak and refine this, put my own spin on it. All right, cool. And like, all of my systems have been built out from, again, many other people, from other mentors, courses that I've done. People that I've looked at in the industry that I want to learn from, that I consider as mentors. And I take bits and pieces from each of them, put them all together, put my own spin on it, man. And, I'm doing my anatomy and physiology diploma right now. Right. I learned enough through my PT course to be able to, start training people. But, I want to understand that on a deeper level now. It's funny, man, because I've been posting on my Instagram stories, like my results, and it's like 96%, 98%, 100%, 100%, 100%. And people are like, are you cheating? I'm like, fuck no, man. I'm like, why would I cheat? Like, maybe when I was younger, when I first did my PT course, it's all about, all right, I just want to tick the box, man. I want to tick the fucking box. Like, whereas now I'm like, I actually want to understand it, right? Like I understand how to train people and I understand how to get results. But now, as you said, like I've got that anecdotal evidence. I've been doing it for 9 years now, but now I'm like learning why it works. And having an understanding of that. So then I can, once I understand that on a deeper level, then maybe I can tweak and refine my protocols a little bit more.
Yeah, for sure. And that's it. You just got to keep like developing, and we'll forever be developing.
Yeah.
I mean, no matter how far you get, everyone just keeps developing and keeps improving. So the more experience you have in the field, I think the better. Like I went the opposite way of going the studying route, and I did it all on experience. Hell, I might have spent 15 years being broke, but I learned a hell of a lot through 15 years being broke. And now I'm 17, 18 years in, and now I'm way further ahead than the guys that were going back and doing the opposite to what I was doing. And again, it's anyone's journey. You do it the way you want to do it, but that's the way I see fit, and that's the way I see forward.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, man. I get a lot of messages from people asking, what's the best courses that I can do for this? What's the best path that I need to take to become a coach, become a strength and conditioning coach, to become a bodybuilder, to become an MMA athlete, or whatever, man. Like, what's your advice to people like that?
Invest in mentorship all day. Find the best mentors you could. The best. I paid a mentor, I think 5,000 Aussie when I had zero money in the bank account. I took out a credit card loan, and everyone around me at the time, my partner, my family, oh, you haven't got the money, don't do it. But I knew by doing this mentorship course that I would learn a hell of a lot. And I knew it was the right one for me. And I didn't listen to them. So I went out on my own. I took out a credit card, $5,000, paid $5,000 right then and there. Didn't pay it off for 2 years. Couldn't afford to. But after those 2 years, everything I put together from that course exploded. And everything made sense. So it was one of the best, times that I did that. And I'm not saying people should do that. People should put themselves in debt. That was just me. I knew it would work so much. I knew it was the thing I needed to get ahead. So I did it, even when I had no money, because I knew that was what I wanted to do. And it was my vision to make that happen. So,
so that was quite high on your priority list. You knew that was the direction that you wanted to be going. And you invested in that knowing that, you were going to take a hit in the short term, but it was going to work out in the long term. And because it was high on your priority list, it was high on your values, you committed to it and you went, all right, I've fucking got to make this work now.
Yeah, no, it was like all my eggs in one basket.
Yeah.
There's no going back.
Burn the boats, bro.
I actually like things where once you go down the rabbit hole, you can't come out of. I like that. I don't like to sit in between. If I see like something and I want it, I will go for it and I will close the door behind me, because once you go, sometimes there's no coming back.
Yeah.
I personally like that stuff because that's what moves you forward. That's what pushes you forward. And that's a scary place to be. But, I actually really like doing that sort of stuff.
Yeah, 100%, man. There's no growth in the comfort zone, right?
Not at all, man.
Like, you've got to get out of your comfort zone and start walking that path, man.
Yeah.
And, my advice lines up with that as well, is figure out the direction you want to be moving and then just put one foot in front of the other, right? And this is what I did with my coaching journey. It's like, all right, I'm going to follow this for a little bit. And I did my PT course and started working with people. And then, I would get people come in and it was all about the training program, the nutrition plan. Yeah. And then, my shoulder's sore. My stress levels are high. This and that. And I'm like, all right, like why are, 80, 90% of my clients not getting fucking results? All right. And then I went down the neuro-linguistic programming. It's like how people talked about themselves and, talk to themselves and, the stories they told themselves created, different emotions, actions, behaviors, So then I did that. And then, all right, now, now 60% of my clients aren't getting results, 40% are. All right, cool. Let's dive into nutrition in a little bit more detail. Let's dive into behavioral therapy and stuff like that. And then, all right, now 60% of my clients are getting results and 40%, and it's
exactly well put.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just like following the bouncing ball, man. I'm going to apply this knowledge to my clients. I'm going to figure out what works. All right, I'm going to constantly review, see where I'm at, see how well my protocols are working. And then, all right, I'm missing a piece of the puzzle right now. What's going to be the piece of the puzzle that's going to help me solve this and get more people achieving their results? And then, do the next course, but you have to apply, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You can do all the courses in the world, but without application, you'll end up nowhere.
Yeah. I always say, like, knowledge is not power.
Knowledge is not power if you don't apply it.
Yeah.
Knowledge is power if you apply it.
Exactly. Which becomes wisdom then.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's that bridge between the scientific evidence and anecdotal evidence, right?
Yeah.
It's like, hey, I'm going to do this. Oh, well, these protocols didn't exactly work for this person. How can I tweak and refine them to get this person moving in the right direction? All right, now they're moving in the right direction. So those scientific evidence protocols don't quite 100% work as written for me with this person.
Yeah.
All right, that means maybe it's not going to work with that person. Maybe I need to adjust it a little bit more.
For sure. And over time, and the more you do it...
It's the science and the art of coaching as well.
Exactly. And the more you do it, the more experience you get with it, the better you become at it. You know, the quicker you can sort of pick things up and see things like, you know, someone's behavior, like, all right, I know why they're doing that because I did this before 100 times, you know. Whereas if it's the first time, it's like, oh, I got to figure it out. But now you're like, yeah, I know why. And as soon as you say it to them, they're just like, yeah, that's true. You know? Yeah. It's like,
oh, you called me out.
Exactly. the longer you do it, the more you push at it, the more you learn about it, the quicker you'll become at it. So.
Yeah. Awesome, man. Now let's talk about periodization of training, nutrition, recovery
for physique athletes.
Yep.
You know, there's fads. There's fads all the time, and so with training. At the moment, it's very like in the physique world, get strong at all costs. Get strong, beat the numbers in your logbook. That's the only way forward. Rah. And I did that for a while. And what I found was, okay, things on like squats and deads and things like that, yes. Okay, your basic compounds, strength, all day long, because you're going to contract with the muscles regardless. But when it comes to building a physique and doing movements like, I don't know, dumbbell rows or lat pull downs or a dumbbell chest press, you know, contraction beats any of the strength side of things. Because what we're trying to do is
just talk about that in a little bit more detail just for the audience.
Sure. So like
you're talking about intramuscular contraction?
Intramuscular contractions. It doesn't necessarily align with strength. So the day that you can sort of figure that out, and I'll give you an example. One of my Thai guys, Boom, right? He has one of the biggest, widest, densest backs on the circuit, like by far around the world almost. Like if you look at his back, it's ridiculous. And I've trained his back with him a few times, and he is so weak. Like not weak, but the weights that he lifts are so light. You'd think, oh my God, he must be lifting like 5 plates a side on everything. He's not. He's just contracting with the muscles so hard to force that growth and adaptation. So when it comes to periodizing training, I like to go strength, hypertrophy, endurance. You've got to cover all those bases. If you just go strength, you get blocky.
Yep. Let's pause there and talk about that as well. So just for the audience, I've talked about periodization in terms of strength and conditioning with athletes for athletic development. So, you know, gone through stability, mobility, strength, speed, power, endurance, end-system conditioning, et cetera. But for specific to bodybuilding, let's talk about, do you use like sets, reps?
Yep, absolutely. So
rest periods, because the point that I'm making is, again, for the audience that have been listening for a long time, but I'll touch on it for people that haven't maybe listened to the podcast before, is, you know, your intent for the training session is going to determine your exercise selection, your exercise order, your sets, your reps, your rest period, your intensities, your time under tension, your tempo, range of movement, et cetera, angle, line of pull.
Exactly. So, what do you mean?
So do you use specific, like sets, reps?
Yes. So I'll use sets and reps. Absolutely.
For strength.
So obviously, like, it's pretty basic. People know like strength would be a lower rep range, like hypertrophy would be a medium rep range, and endurance would be a higher rep range. So the endurance could be like supersets, drop sets, giant sets, quad sets, all that sort of stuff. You know, your hypertrophy is more like contract the muscle. Don't obviously go for just purely strength. Keep tension on the muscle, time under tension, range of movement. And then the strength is like, okay, this is where you can get strong too. So I cover all bases of that. That's where I find the best quality muscle is built, is focusing on all of those 3 aspects. So when, like I said, the fad that's going around at the moment is get strong. Your body will actually fizzle away and you'll become square, you'll become blocky, and that takes away from a physique athlete's look.
How would you structure it? Would it depend on the athlete?
I've probably got
Because sometimes maybe you'd start on endurance with one person.
Yeah,
then
so it'll be like a 3-week cycle.
Okay.
So you do like 1 week of strength, 1 week of middle range, and then 1 week of endurance range.
Mm-hmm.
But then I've also got a 1 week plan that's just covers all three.
Gotcha.
So again, it depends on the individual. I think, and especially with exercise selection, you said before, you've got to use exercises that contract with you the best. I'm a terrible bench presser. My structure and the way I'm built is I'm so shoulder dominant that it takes away from flat bench press. I'm awful. I've had strength coaches put the pads on me and adjust me and try and put me in place and all this shit. And they're just like, you shouldn't bench press. Your bench press is shit. And
but then you go and do a fucking cable fly.
Well, I'll go do a dumbbell press and the contraction's through the roof.
Yep.
So you've got to find exercise selection that contracts with your muscle the best. It's not just about, okay, bench press. Bench press is cool, but if you feel as though it's not really putting a lot of, tension on the chest, then switch it up for the same movement pattern of a different exercise. For example, flat machine press, dumbbell press, things like that, instead of a barbell, if that makes sense. So your exercise selection is super important in that. Exercise order is another thing that, I develop over time. So in short, you probably want to put like your heavy compounds at first to really sort of get the most out of them. And then it's about the details after that. So then it's more about like the flies and the cables and things. But I always try and start sort of barbell dumbbell, to start with. Obviously warm up and all that sort of stuff. But then it's like barbell dumbbells, really max out them. And then we'll go to like the detail side of things of like cables and angles and things like that.
Yeah, cool. I like to use like bodybuilding style, that like intramuscular contraction, right, as like rehab activation work for athletes, right? So I think, if I've got an athlete who I get them to do some balance-based work, some stability, like some hip airplanes, one of my favorite exercises to develop the stabilizers of the hips, right? Because the joint needs to be stable with all of the muscles surrounding the joint firing, so then you can get the most out of the prime movers when you want to target them, right? So, I'll go through, if I can see that someone's a little bit wobbly, they're a little bit unbalanced, all right, what muscle is likely weak there that's not firing? How can I target that? How can I isolate that movement? Then I'm going to take some, bodybuilding style exercises or some isolation based work and really think about creating that mind muscle connection, get that muscle fired up, then go and integrate that into more of a compound based movement.
Exactly.
So for example, if someone can't get their pecs firing, for example, maybe I'm going to do an isolation exercise first, then go into a heavy barbell bench press.
It's always isolation first to get things firing, and then it's compounds. So
but you can also do that the other way with like a post fatigue.
Yeah, you could. Yeah, exactly. But I just feel like, like for example, sometimes
depends what the intent is, right?
Sometimes I'll put on a back day, I'll put deadlifts last.
Yeah.
So that's like mental. That's like I've just battered myself. Now I'm going to do 5 sets of deadlifts. That's like, this is where this comes in, So sometimes I'll do things like that as well.
Let's talk about those different phases, because it's important to have those different phases in regards to training, right? Specific adaptation to imposed demands is what we say, the said principle in strength and conditioning, like your body's going to adapt to whatever you throw at it, right? That's a great thing, but it's also going to get to a point of diminishing returns. And once you get to that point of diminishing returns, it's time to move to the next phase. Now, each one of those phases has a specific adaptation that we're training for. The strength phase is, what are we training in the strength phase?
It's like heavy compounds mostly. Heavy compounds. There's a little bit of detail work like isolations to get the muscles firing, but it's mostly heavy compounds.
And what that's going to do is create intermuscular connection. So yes, we want to be targeting, if we're doing bench press, yes, I want to be targeting my chest, for example, but my shoulders need to be firing, my triceps need to be firing. I also need, the musculature of my upper back firing as well, so that I've got a stable platform to be able to press against, right? So that's more of a neuromuscular adaptation, right? Which, builds stronger muscle fibers, gets a stronger contraction, right? Then when we go into the hypertrophy phase, what's the adaptation we're looking for there?
Sure. I mean, look, we'd probably use similar movements and a similar setup, but it's more just about a little bit more time under tension. So perhaps on the negative portion of the rep, you're really trying to emphasize that for 2-3 seconds on the way down, because I think a lot of people forget that there's two parts to every movement. It's
100%.
It's eccentric and the concentric, and you've got to...
And isometric.
And isometric, yes, as it holds as well.
Yep.
But people forget that. People forget those parts. So it's like, that's where we're really trying to get, the negative part of the rep and the positive part of the rep to really fire. So it's not necessarily about the weight, but you've got to feel that muscle almost like, fuck, screaming, man. So
that's something that a lot of people do forget about, man. Like when we're going through the eccentric phase of the lift, right, the lowering of the lift where, the muscle's lengthening, that's where the muscle's actually fucking tearing down, man.
That's where it's tearing, man. Exactly. And
that's where it's breaking down.
Forget that. Yep. Too many people forget that. So people can take from this, let's focus on, the eccentric part of the movement. Like that's going to be a big game changer in their training, and it'll help their training improve a hell of a lot.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. We'll come back to this in a moment and try it all in. But that's more about the myofibrillar hypertrophy, right? So we're building those muscle fibers bigger, stronger.
Yeah.
Right. And then we go into our endurance phase, which is going to be more sarcoplasmic hypertrophy.
Yeah. And I think that's the hardest one.
Yeah. That's basically the pump for people that are
literally. It's muscular endurance. And I think that's another forgotten art when it comes to training, because it's all strength and hypertrophy. But without the endurance, like it's harder to get those extra reps on the strength, because you need, that endurance to get through that. So I think endurance is a massive part of it, which people often forget about.
All right, cool, man. And I think it's important to hit all of those aspects, right?
Yes.
Because the first one, the strength phase, is going to be like a neurological adaptation. You're sending a strong signal, right? It's like your brain's the amplifier and your muscles are the speakers. So the stronger you can get that signal from the amplifier to the speakers, like the better you're going to be able to contract those muscles.
Yeah.
Then the second phase, hypertrophy or myofibrillar hypertrophy, it's about building those speakers out. Right. And then we're moving in, and that's a structural adaptation. Right. We're focusing more on the actual structure of the muscle and the muscle fibers. And then the sarcoplasmic hypertrophy is more of like, let's fucking push a heap of fluid into that area. Let's get jacked up. It's like Arnold says in Pumping Iron. It's like, I'm coming.
Yeah, literally. It's that feeling. I'm coming.
Yeah. All right. Cool, man. Now I want to circle back to exercise selection, exercise order to tie into everything that we've just spoken about, because again, this is something that people don't really understand. Like, yes, you can. Here's the thing. I can do, let's take a bench press because it's simple. It's easy. Okay. I can do a bench press for strength. I can do a bench press for myofibrillar hypertrophy. I can do a bench press for sarcoplasmic hypertrophy, right? But how I do that, the time under tension, the sets, the reps, the rest period, the intensity, it's range of movement, angles, etc. That's going to determine the adaptation that I'm going to get from it, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. All right, cool. I just thought that was important to note for people, man, because, here's the thing, like I'm probably not going to be doing high rep fucking deadlifts.
Well, I mean, I get people to do it. I get people to do it, man. It's like, it's more of a mental thing.
Yeah.
And especially
but it's going to be super light. If you're doing high reps, man, if you're focusing on that sarcoplasmic hypertrophy and you're looking for the pump.
I get people to do sometimes 20 reps on a deadlift, and even at the end of back sessions, and especially guys that are trying to cut weight, because that's like, it's really, I know. Well, not cut weight, but cut fat. Yeah, I'm pretty savage in my plans, man. Especially people that are trying to sort of, like trim down. I would cut weight's probably not the best term, but people know what I mean by that. Losing fat. And then it's like, it's a mental game, and it's really contracting the shit out of the muscle, and, it's pushing that fat burning process into play as well. So that's a lot of the time why I do things like that.
Yeah, sweet. There's something I want to dive into a little bit more detail as well that, again, I think is often missed. And you've kind of touched on it already with, people with the fad these days of strength, lift more. When I was in the army, man, this was 2007 to 2012, 2006 to 2012. I'd be at the gym training after a full workday, man, and I've got like 10 kilo barbell doing bicep curls, bro. Super slow, man, creating that mind muscle connection. And there's a dude next to me, 40 kilos, fucking swinging it up, man, and like he's looking at me going, "What the fuck, man?" This dude's arms are like, I was tanked then, man. This dude's arms are massive, and this motherfucker's just like using momentum, right? And I think that's a big takeaway for the listeners is that, again, comes down to that intent. What's my intent? I'm trying to target this muscle. I'm going to try and remove any momentum from that movement. People create momentum because they're weak in that position.
For sure.
Right? So they're fucking ego lifting, man. And they're missing out on like, you know, potentially 3/4, half of the range of movement that they could be working those muscle fibers through.
For sure. One thing I do say though, in contrary to what we're saying, young guys, newbie lifters, I tell them to get fucking strong. And I tell them to, you know, sometimes go out of the parameters of form and all that sort of stuff. Because when you're young, your body just adapts, man.
Yeah.
And try and get as strong as possible. And then from there, you'll find that once you sort of max out like your strength and things aren't firing as well, and after a few years of doing that, then it's like you've got to be a bit smarter about using it. But I say when guys are new and young to the game, like they can just lift. And don't be too scared to go outside of form. I mean, don't be stupid. Don't injure yourself, things like that. But I've seen tremendous growth from very, very young people, like 18 to 21, that are sort of just getting into it by just strength, you know?
Yeah.
But then you've got to adapt and be smarter with it as you get older. And that's what I found as well. So,
mate, 100% agree with you, man. Like I've been lifting for, 20 years now. And it was funny. Like I went into the gym at Tiger probably like a year ago or something. Like the upstairs gym, the air conditioned gym with all the machines and shit. And like some of the other coaches were like, what the fuck are you doing in here? Like, I'm out there doing my like heavy lifts and sprints and jumps and throws and things like that. I'm like, I fucking did bodybuilding style training for like 10 years of my life, right? Yeah. And I agree with what you said, man. Like, because I did that bodybuilding style training. It was all like isolation, do a compound movement, then follow that up with, isolation movements for the same muscle groups, blah, blah, blah. And, it wasn't until I actually started working with a good strength and conditioning coach who was just like, get fucking strong, get fucking powerful, do these compound movements, use your isolation movements to, assist.
Yeah, exactly.
And as accessories rather than the main focus. And dude, like my physique fucking changed dramatically.
And you were young
like,
then.
Yeah, man, I was like 25, 26 years old, dude. And that's the thing, like when you're doing these big compound movements, man, like, you're producing massive amounts of fucking testosterone as a dude, growth hormone, insulin spike.
You'll get everything else stronger as well. So, especially when you're young, I think then when you've got like, good 5, 6, 7 years experience, you've got to be a bit smarter with it. That's when it's like, okay, things aren't working as well as what they used to. Now I've got to be smart with it. And that'll enhance your growth even further.
Yeah, for sure, man. All right, cool. Let's talk about what's the impact that performance enhancing drugs can have on someone's physique. Now, I want to discuss how much of an impact that genetics have on someone's ability to build the physique that they want, because I'm sure you've had this before. I've literally had people come to me and like show me a photo. Back in the day, it was from a magazine, but now it's from fucking Instagram. Hey, I want to look like this person. I'm like, well, your structure is nothing like theirs. It's like, it's near impossible. I can't get you to look like that. Like your body structure is completely different. So let's talk about, first of all, genetics, how that impacts your potential to build a great physique. But then also how performance enhancing drugs can either aid that or supplement that.
Sure. So the first part is
genetics.
So Ronnie Coleman won his IFBB professional card in natural. Okay, he is one of the most genetically gifted people of all time. He is a part of the 0.01% of the population. And I hear this all the time. It's like, well, Ronnie Coleman did this. It's like next to no one is like Ronnie Coleman. Next to no one is like these top guys. Like they can do that. Some people can look at a dumbbell and grow a bicep. But 99.9% of us cannot do that. And so being like, I want to look like this guy in the magazine, but your genetics aren't great, it's going to be very difficult. I don't think genetics are an excuse to hold you back. I know I said earlier, I'm not the most genetically blessed guy, but I feel like I've maxed out a lot of my physique, even with poor genetics, about doing things a little bit smarter. Genetic guys will always get ahead. However, I've found that guys with a lot of potential in their genetics can sometimes be a bit complacent. And they think their genetics will only take them so far because they won a few shows, even though they were eating Maccas and all that sort of stuff. They won a few small shows. But then when they jump in the big show with the guys that are serious, they get their asses handed to them. And then they're like, oh shit,
I need to actually do the
level
work.
To this.
Yeah, it's not just my genetics. So I've seen that happen quite a bit, and people get a bit humbled by it. So genetics will only take you so far. You've got to be a bit smarter with it. Tying that in with performance-enhancing drugs, everyone uptakes that differently. So I've seen guys skinny as hell when I was a kid like me jump on a cycle and put on like 40 pounds of muscle. Like, I am not joking. Because they're just ultra, probably like a year or something like that. Yeah. But they're just ultra responders to it. Some people don't respond a hell of a lot to them. And everyone's sort of different based on their muscle receptors and how well it uptakes with them. So not everyone gets the same benefit from performance-enhancing drugs. What I say is you should not be using performance-enhancing drugs until you've got everything else in order, until you know how to train properly. And I'm not talking about, I've been training for 3 months, now I'm going to get on this huge cycle and get massive. I'm talking about training for like a good 6, 7, 8 years and like really learning how to train, learning about food, learning about what food works for you, learning about how it ties in with the training and how to work it around training. You've got to know these things, and you've got to be doing them for years and years and years. Because when I was younger, when I first started training, me and my friends were like, we'd train for a year. Oh, should we add in some protein powder? Oh, nah, I'm not ready for that. It was like a year in, let's get on some protein powder. Should we add in some creatine? Oh, nah. That's a bit hard. Like, I'm not going to do that. And so it was very progressive.
Fuck, mate, that was opposite to me. I was just like, give me everything, man. I was taking all the supplements under the sun, bro.
I was very progressive with it.
That's good to know, man. And I think that's very important for the audience as well. And the reason I wanted to ask about this is, going right back to one of the first things I said about like asking about steroids. I get people, being the head coach at Tiger, man, like people come over and they're wanting to change their life. Right? They're trying to come over here to get in shape. They're here for 3 months. They want to get the best fucking results possible. Yeah. And one of the first questions I've had so many people ask, I'm not going to drop any names, but hey, where can I get steroids from? What's the best steroid? Blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, look, here's the thing. It's like, let's talk about your lifestyle first. Yeah. How much stress are you under? What's your diet look like? What's your training history? What's your injury history? Blah, blah, blah.
Get that stuff right.
Yeah, let's get that stuff dialed in first, because this is where I'm like, you know what? Let's try and, progress as much as we can by focusing on the big things that you can continue doing back home, because you're in a new environment here. You don't have your normal stresses from your home environment. Okay. It's fucking easy to set up your training schedule here because you're not working. It's easy to train up your nutrition. It's easy to, line up your recovery, etc. If you're adding steroids on top of that and you get these amazing results after 3 months, we can't pinpoint what the fucking, the biggest contributors have been to that success. And, maybe you have not dialed in your training, nutrition, recovery, stress management, sleep, hormones, etc., and you just take anabolics, and then you get these good results, and then you go home, but you haven't fucking learned anything.
Nah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, you can understand people coming here 3 months and thinking, I'm going to do everything and anything, but what tends to happen is those people that decide to use performance-enhancing drugs, they stop with everything else. They stop training as hard, they stop periodizing their training, they stop eating as hard because they think, I'm taking steroids, I don't need to. But then they get to the end of it and think, I didn't get the best results, The amazing thing to me is I know I could possibly say this, I'm probably going to get slaughtered for it, but 75% of people that go to gym are using some sort of performance-enhancing drug, and I know that firsthand. But everyone lies about it. No one will tell you the truth about it. And you see guys that are taking it but look like they don't. And it's like, something's not adding up here. Something's not right. Now, are steroids the only way forward to get the results? No. I've had natural guys win untested shows, very, very high-end untested shows, because they're vigilant with everything else. So steroids are so your body is like a cake with icing. Steroids are the sprinkles that go on top of that cake. So without getting, you're not just going to eat sprinkles, are you? No one would sit there and just eat sprinkles. You'd bake the cake, you'd put the icing on, and then you'd put the sprinkles on, then you'd eat it. Do you know what I mean? So they're a very, very small part. They do, what the main focus of performance-enhancing drugs is to enhance recovery. It enhances recovery between sets. It enhances recovery during the night. It enhances, so you'd feel a lot less sort of sore. You'd be able to push longer and stronger, and you get stronger quicker over time. And that's essentially what they do.
But without everything else aiding it, like the nutrition, the health supplements, the recovery, the training, they're a waste of time. Don't bother, because you're going to get shit results and you're not going to be happy with the results you get, and they're not going to last. If people are looking at taking them, like I said, we've already discussed getting everything in order first, but take a very, very small amount. Bob at the gym, who's been doing it for 60 years, and I take 10 mil of this and 10 mil of that, right?
Stacking everything.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to get you nowhere. Try and get the most out of the minimum. And I'm not just saying that to be like a responsible person, but I know people that are taking very small amounts, and I know people that are taking very, very large amounts. And the people taking small amounts are getting way better results than the guys taking the large, because your body can only uptake so much, especially as a beginner with it. And the more you advance, yes, the more you can end up taking, as long as you're sort of monitoring your health. But if you just start very small, you'd be amazed at how much your body would progress. I think that's a very good message for people. Like, yeah, I'm trying to be responsible in a way, but I'm also trying to give people advice on what I've experienced and what I've seen. You're fucked without your health. Like, some people listen to that and think, I don't give a shit. I'm just going to jab this and get massive and look wicked and all this sort of stuff. But without your health, that's not going to happen, and it's not going to last. And I've seen people, really destroy themselves from it. Their dick doesn't work anymore because of it. I feel like that's very rare and very extreme, but these people have abused it for too long, and bad things happen, So you've got to be very, very smart about it. And don't just do it because Bob at the gym said to. Go and speak with someone, who perhaps knows what they're talking about. Perhaps you've seen the results, you've spoken to their clients, or, even through a sports medicine clinic or something like that, because you don't want to fuck yourself up, because without your health, your body will look shit. You'll feel shit. You'll perform shit. Your body will look shit for it. You can say shit. But that's where you're going to end up. And it's a cycle. It's like, I tell people to get their blood work, and a lot of the time in bodybuilding, people are like, I don't want to see my blood work. I'm too nervous about it. I've been taking this, and this.
Like, that's exactly why you should be fucking looking at your blood work.
It's exactly why you should be, but people sometimes want to put their head in the sand. Now, I say, obviously, health is important. Everyone knows health is important, right? But what if I said to these people, well, if your health isn't right and your health markers are out, your gains will be a lot slower. And then it's like, oh yeah, maybe I should. Because you'll get more gains. Because the healthier you are, the better your body responds, the better you feel, the better you recover, the better you train, the better you sleep. So don't bury your head in the sand when it comes to health, because that is the number one thing to it.
I always say, man, on this podcast, like, people have been listening for a while, probably sick of hearing me say it. It's like, a healthy organism is an adaptable organism. If your body's healthy, then you provide the stimulus, right? Then your body goes, hey, I'm in a good place. I can adapt to this in a positive manner. How can I deal with this situation better next time? Then it takes those nutrients. It takes, maybe the performance enhancing drugs, whatever you're putting into your body, to then be able to adapt in a positive manner.
Yeah, exactly. For me, it's the biggest thing I say to people is get your health right, because you'll create more gains. I know you could sit there and say, get your health right because you want to be healthy. That's pretty generic, and people are like, whatever, I heard it 100 times. But you say, well, your gains are going to slow down if you're not healthy. Then that puts a bit more into perspective for them. So I think that's a strong message.
Yeah, absolutely. I did have something on the tip of my tongue then, but I lost it. Let's talk about how you tie in nutrition with the training and the recovery stuff as well, and how you might use performance-enhancing drugs to tie in with that and aid that process.
Okay, so look, when it comes to setting up nutrition, I think macronutrient timing and nutrient partitioning is very important. And I think that's very overlooked. I feel, look, if you're a bit of a lifestyle guy, you're a bit overweight and you want to lose a bit of weight, look, this is not the audience I'm talking to right now. I'm talking to guys that want to take a physique to the next level. You've got to get your nutrients right, because you hear calories in, calories out, this and that. Shut up, all right? You want to go ahead, shut up with that. Your macronutrients are so important. You need to obviously be having a high protein diet. For guys sort of my size, you want to be going, anywhere from 250 to even up to 400 grams of protein, depending, how much your body needs and how hard you're training. I believe the harder you're training, the more protein you need in your diet. and you need to be able to digest it. But that's another level of getting your gut health right and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very carbohydrate based when it comes to my style of nutrition. When I have people diet down, I probably pinch fats first before I pinch carbohydrates. Now, I know on a sort of brain function, performance, and mental clarity thing, good fats are great for that. But they're the nutrient that I pull first, because in my game, glycogen creates hardness in the muscle.
Mm-hmm.
It creates fullness and hardness in the muscle. Fats soften a person. When you're very, very lean, I use fats to create a bit of fullness and to soften people if they need, and to slow down the absorption of carbohydrates.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I'm very, very carb-based. However, I'll definitely put your most important times of the day to carb is, I'd say, meal one. Whether you've done fasted cardio past that, I'd say that's a super, super important meal to have a heavy glycogen meal. Pre-workout, glycogen, but also a little bit of healthy fats to slow down the insulin spike,
Mm-hmm.
because fats, like I said, fats will slow down the absorption of carbs. And then post-workout is another heavy carb meal, but we want to be going for something like a sugary-based fast,
like high GI.
Yeah, high GI, straight to the muscle, like a cereal, low fats.
So this is this because we've just depleted our glycogen stores? We want to replenish them.
You want to replenish your glycogen stores, and that will speed up recovery. So, and obviously we want a fast digesting protein, which is why protein shakes are fantastic post-workout. Because what it does is it switches on something called mTOR.
Mm-hmm.
mTOR is the switch that creates muscle protein synthesis. I know that can be a bit like, what the fuck is he talking about? But it's like a switch that you flick when you've hit that protein, you've hit those amino acids, and it speeds up your recovery. I like to talk basic so people understand. When I start going, people are like, what? So that's kind of an insight about how I sort of schedule dieting. I like to have proteins and fats pre-bed. I find that carbohydrates pre-bed can disrupt sleep sometimes. So I sort of go with a protein fats meal, because fats can sort of make you sort of mellow. They can help your brain function, your clarity, and you put your head down and you sort of have a better night's sleep for it. So there's a few things about getting your physique to the next level, is like your macronutrient timing, and sort of structuring it like that will be the best way going forward.
Mm-hmm. And that's going to be dependent upon what phase they're in, whether in a strength phase or hypertrophy phase, endurance phase?
Not at all. No.
What about different duration out from competing, for example?
Yes. So that's metabolism dependent.
Okay.
I mean, I have some people dial in to shows on 500 grams of carbs a day. I have some people dial into shows on 100. I never have anyone go zero carb. I've never, ever, ever had anyone go zero carb, even though that's like, oh yeah, you got to go zero carbs because carbs are bad, right? Well, no, you take out carbs, your metabolism stops working, which means your fat burning process slows down. So again, that's sort of metabolism dependent, on the individual. So depending how well they can uptake. So if I was to put someone with a fast metabolism on 100 grams of carbs a day, they wouldn't burn fat. But if they've got a super fast metabolism and having on 400 carbs a day, they'll burn way more fat. So it's all about finding where that person's metabolism is at and trying to steal macronutrients here and there without disrupting appetite.
And this is where having that rapport with them, talking to them about
communication,
what they've done in the past, what's worked for them.
Yes.
Hey, when you're leading into it, how do you feel on this many carbohydrates or blah, blah, blah.
I mean, sometimes when you sort of get to about 4 weeks out, your feelings don't mean shit.
Yeah, of course.
And I sort of have to...
Because it's not healthy, man.
Nah, it's not. Everyone, you sort of know that. And it's like, people, when you sort of get to lowish sort of things, it's like, oh, I got prep brain. I'm like, yeah, you do. Like, you're just going to have to hang in there a bit, man. And it's just one of those things. It's like, it's not the worst thing in life, man.
This is what you signed up for.
This is what you signed up for. But people are like, oh, it's the hardest thing I've ever done. It's like, well, man, your life's going to be fucking shit, because there's going to be way harder times. Someone's going to die in your family.
Yeah.
That's going to be way harder than dieting hard for 4 weeks. And feeling like, oh, this and that. So
exactly. If you can deal with this, man, if you can deal with this adversity and grind through it, that's going to set you up to be able to deal with tough times in the future.
Everyone's been through shit, right? And so dieting is not as hard as what the shit some people have had to go through, So I mean, that's kind of the perspective that you have to think of it. It's not like the end of the world, the hardest thing ever. Just hang in there, push through it, because once you've done it once, it gets easier the next time.
Mm-hmm.
You know those feelings. You know how to feel. Dieting is so easy for me because I've done it like 10 or 12 times, like dieted down to those extreme levels. And the first time I did it, I was like, whoa, I can't sleep. My brain's going crazy. I'm telling people to fuck off and all this sort of stuff. But now that I've done it over and over and over, I know those feelings.
You know what to expect.
I'm a week out and I'm still smiling and I've still got energy. And I'm like, because I know how it feels, so I know how to overcome those feelings. And your first prep will always be the hardest because it's like you don't know how to feel. What is going on? I've got cement blocks stuck to my feet, all this sort of stuff. But as you do it more and more and more, you know those feelings and it becomes so much smoother.
Let's tie in steroid use to that process.
Yeah. So depending on the phase of the person and where they're trying to get to. So if they're in a progression season or an off season where they're trying to grow muscle, you know, we're not going to be using things like short esters or fat burners or anything like that. We're going to be using longer esters because longer.
For the audience and for myself, what does that mean?
Sure. So a testosterone cypionate is a long-acting ester that will stay in for about one shot will stay in your system for about 3 or 4 weeks. A testosterone propionate will be in your system for about 48 to 72 hours. Testosterone suspension, which is I know is a lot of fighters like to use, but I won't get into that, lasts in your system for 6 hours. So that's how they beat drug tests.
Okay.
So when we're trying to sort of grow tissue, we're going to go for the longer esters because they last in your system longer. They create a lot more fullness in the muscle, and over time they're better for recovery. The shorter, and they can also make you hold a bit of water. So we'd use them to try and grow. And
that's basically keeping that anabolic signal high for longer periods of time.
For longer periods of time.
Yeah,
so
which is going to aid the recovery, which is going to aid the ability to push a little bit harder.
For sure. Then what we'd do is we'd move to the shorter esters, like the propionate, as we'd get closer to competition, because they're going to be in and out your system quicker. So you're almost beating that water retention that you'd be holding from the longer esters. Which takes away that sort of puffiness and stuff like that when people get like these chubby faces and like all that sort of stuff. So the shorter esters is what we'd use back into the show. And then we'd obviously add in some fat burners like some clenbuterol. Clenbuterol is actually not a steroid. It's a steroid-like substance, but it's not known as a steroid because it burns fat very, very well, but it also has anabolic properties that helps you hold onto muscle when you're burning fat. Unlike things like Cytomel, which is T3, I don't have a lot of guys that use T3 on my team because a lot of physique guys are fast metabolism guys. What T3 does is a thyroid hormone that speeds up your metabolism. So why would I try and speed up a guy's metabolism that has a fast metabolism? In turns, that will then chew into their muscle because there's no anabolic properties to a thyroid burning hormone. So I think that's a big thing for physique guys is it's like, oh, you got to take Clen and T3. Like, well, not a lot of my guys take T3 and they look way better than the guys that are using it because the guys that use it tend to come in very stringy, whereas physique is like a fullness game. You got to have so much fullness to you. So yeah, in short, longer acting esters for an off season or a start of a contest prep, shorter acting esters to sort of beat that water retention, coming closer to show and adding some fat burners in. I won't go into like what exact steroids people take, but look, the minimum amount you use, the better you'll be, the better you'll feel, the better you perform. The more shit you put in your body, the shittier you're going to feel, the worse you'll perform. And I know we said that before, but that's a really strong message. Just get the least out of the most, but get everything right first before you do it. And I promise you, your results will be 10 times better than what Bob at the gym's telling you to put in your body.
Yeah, that was a big point that I wanted to touch on as well and ask you about is, you know, back in the day, again, talking about, you know, before the mass monster era, you know, bodybuilders would be, you know, taking one substance.
They were taking...
Not fucking stacking everything.
Yeah, because that's all they had. Back in the day, like I know a lot of old school bodybuilders from the 70s and 80s, and I know a lot of them, you know, that grew up with Dorian Yates, that all this sort of stuff, and they were taking probably 2 to 3 substances max going into shows. And
they would cycle through it.
Yeah, they would cycle. They'd come off and off. They'd come on and off and on and off and all the time. And there's so much quality in their physiques because their main focus was training. And they were using like testosterone and DECA, which is what people would use in like an off season now to grow. No one would dial in on a testosterone and DECA. Like it's pretty impressive what they could do with like sort of watery based longer acting esters, but it goes to show how vigilant they were with everything else.
Mm-hmm.
What was the next part of that? We were saying,
I was just talking about like the transition from, that era where they were just taking one or two substances at a time to now it's just like, fucking old Bob. Yeah, old Bob's like, take this and stack it with this, and stack it with this and stack it with this.
So they were taking a hell of a lot less. I also think that the gear back then was a lot more potent than it is now because we have now it's all underground labs. And I think that these underground labs are a lot more watered down than weaker potency. Diluted, than what they were back in the day. And I'll give you an example. I know that some guys, so bodybuilders would usually cycle things like Anavar, which is an oral steroid. They'd use like 5 milligrams a day. And these are huge guys, Whereas now people would sort of start on about 50 milligrams a day and cycle up to 100. And these old school guys are going, what? You're taking that? We used to take 5 milligrams back in the day and all that sort of stuff. But so I think that the potency of the performance enhancing drugs now is not compared to what it was back then. I think it was a lot stronger. But
something I want to touch on there as well is, I think this is an important topic, is stress levels.
Mm-hmm.
Think about the stress levels from back then. Like your fucking grandparents are like, man, you guys have it so much harder now because you're stressed. You got so much fucking shit to deal with
everywhere.
Man. Like hormones are like our testosterone, estrogen are made from cholesterol, right? And so is cortisol. So if your stress levels are high and that cortisol is taking away from the available cholesterol, then that's going to limit your ability to produce testosterone and estrogen, right? So do you think that's got something to do with the amount of,
I know what you're saying, and the answer would be I don't know.
Okay.
I really don't know. Something I drill into my guys that I work with is mindset. A lot of stress. What is stress? Nothing. It's not real. How many times have you sort of thought to yourself, I'm so stressed? No, but I know what you're saying, cortisol stress.
There's a real, when it comes to stress, there's perceived threats and real threats.
Yeah.
We live in this fucking world where people live in perceived threat all the time.
Yes.
That's the point that I'm making.
Yes.
It's like if you don't manage your mind, then
your cortisol levels are going to be high.
Exactly.
Your body won't change.
Exactly.
For sure. And that's something I have to drill into my guys is you got to think, how many times have you been like, oh my God, I'm so stressed. Oh my God. But then later on in that day, you've looked back and you're like, what was I even stressing about? So once you sort of live in that sort of mindset, you can deal with stressful situations a little bit better. I think everyone gets stressful situations, but you've kind of got to condition your mind to try and be a bit more, will I be stressing about this in 2 weeks' time? Will I be stressing about this in 8 hours' time?
Yeah.
The answer's 9 times out of 10, it's no.
Don't make a mountain out of a molehill.
Now? So I think a lot of people stress about things more and more and more that just aren't that important. And yes, when you get stressed, your cortisol's high. And it's amazing because when you're very, very lean and you get like a stressful situation, like your body just goes like watery and you're just like, what happened to my abs? So I have to try to train my guys to just be like a monk. Just be, whatever happens, just roll with the punches, because bodybuilding shows are so unorganized, like the most unorganized events in the world. Like you would not, like I've been seeing guys on stage 8 hours late and they've got no food with them, and it's standard. So I said, be ready for anything and just roll with the punches, man. If someone's throwing a punch at you, just take it, go again, ride the wave, like whatever it is. You've just got to sort of smile and just be as cool as possible, because the more you're up and about going like this, the more your body's like not developing the way you want it to, and you're going to be holding water, fat, all that sort of stuff. So I think a lot of stress management comes down to mindset and becoming stronger at it and thinking to yourself, why was I even stressing about that? And stop wasting your energy on things that aren't important.
And outside of your control.
Outside of your control too. Like I say that every day, it's like you've got a bank balance of energy coins. And how are you going to spend those? And you got to spend them every day. How are you going to spend them every day? You're going to spend them wasting time on people that are talking bad about you behind your back? Or are you going to spend that time trying to build something to get even further ahead?
Mm-hmm.
You know, so there's mindset things. I think mindset is the biggest thing with stress, but it's something you've got to get better at over time.
Mm-hmm.
I think. Would you agree with that, or is it?
Yeah, man. You need to condition yourself to be able to, adopt the right mindset for any situation, right? And that takes time, man. Is that something that you do with your coaching?
Yes, for sure. I mean, I do a mindset video every week for my guys, and there's certain things that I'll ask them each week that I've sort of developed, and I thought that could really do well with my athletes, And one of them will be like, I did one the other day. It was like, what's winning to you? I want you to think about what's winning to you. Give me one word about what's winning to you. And I all came back with some, amazing words. Like it's hard, it's progression, it's everything, And so that sort of makes them think about things in a little bit of perspective, because then they're focused on, okay, what do I need to do to win? Not who's this dickhead talking shit behind my back? So they're focused on something else while someone else is focused on them, So I try and sort of get my athletes on things that are important, that are going to get them ahead.
Put the blinkers on, man.
Yeah,
this is what's important, what's in front of me.
Yeah, especially with competition prep, because you're really going to extreme levels, man. And it's crazy because when you get leaner and you're in the gym, so many people are in your ear. Oh man, you're 4 weeks out. You should be getting on stage tomorrow. And then they'll be like, hey, coach, Bob at the gym said, I'm ready. Should I? It's like, don't listen to anyone.
Yeah.
Like, if you're working with someone, just listen to one voice. And I'll tell you the truth, man. I'll tell you, but I know what you mean.
Dude, that's a big thing, man.
There's like 10 coaches, and it's like, coach is telling me to do this. Should I do this? Should I do this? Just do it, right? And assess it afterwards.
Yeah.
Don't go in the motion, because you'll end up nowhere.
Yeah. Dude, that's a great point. For the audience, if you're working with a fucking coach, listen to what that coach has to say.
Yeah.
Follow the program, or the program doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
Trust in their process.
Yep.
Invest in that process, and then review it after.
I mean, that's why I charge what I do.
Yeah,
I charge big money.
Refine it. If it's not working, then, maybe have a conversation with the coach or change coaches.
Yeah.
But I've had so many people go, hey man, like come Tiger. Hey man, I'm training with this person. My coach told me this. Well, fucking listen to what they say. Nothing I say is like, you shouldn't be listening to,
For sure. I get
Trust in that process.
I get a lot of messages from guys that, hey bro, my coach is telling me to do this.
What are your thoughts?
And I say, hey bro, it's none of my business. Do what coach says, and you can assess it after.
Yep, 100%.
And that's what I say. But then there's a lot of coaches that are like, oh, nah, he's a dickhead. Don't work with him. He's a dickhead. You get all that all the time. So it's like, but I stick
That's a good accent, by the way, mate.
I stick to my guns. And I know, like I said, we've both been doing it for a long time. So I don't need to delve into games where people are like, oh, he's telling me to do this. He's telling me to do that. I'm like, okay, whatever, do that. I don't really care. But if you're not comfortable, leave. Or if, I'm not
have the conversation.
I'm not going to step on another coach's toes. I'm never going to badmouth another coach. I could smash the shit out of so many coaches because I know some of the shit that they're up to, and it's not nice. But that's not your personality.
I'm
not going to go to that level.
Yeah.
We stay in our own lane and we do things our way. And I've drilled that into the athletes that I work with. This is the way we do things, all right? We're not going to go. And my athletes know if they're in the gym and they're looking good and someone's going, oh, you should do this and that, they just say, yeah, cool. And then they go back to what they're doing. And I've conditioned them to do that, especially the guys that have worked with me for a long time. And these are the sort of things that we really, really push towards. It's like you've just got to focus on one thing and stop listening to so many outside voices, because you listen to these voices, you get nowhere. You put the blinkers on and you go straight there, you'll be amazed at how far you can go.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Just to start wrapping up the episode, mate, the name of the podcast is Live, Train, Perform, which stands for Live Life to the Fullest, Train to Your Potential, Perform at Your Best.
Love it.
What does that mean to you?
That's like your question that you ask everyone.
Yes.
What's the first bit?
Live life to the fullest.
Live life to the fullest. I think that stop taking on board shit that doesn't matter, that's outside of your control. Do things the way, listen to people, but then do what you were going to do anyway. And I can be quite stubborn with that. Like I have people that will tell me, oh, you should be doing this, you should be doing that. And I'm like, okay, cool. But then I'll go and do my thing anyway. I'm not going to go, oh, no, I shouldn't. I don't even bother. I don't waste energy. So
because then you get pulled in multiple directions.
Yeah, you get pulled. So living life to the fullest is chasing your vision, I would say, and turn the blink to, focus on exactly what you're trying to achieve. What's the next one?
Train to your potential.
Train to your potential. Train your ass off, man. Work like hell. Arnold said it best. Work like hell. When you think you're working hard enough, you're not, okay? You'll continue to get better. So just work like hell. That would be, for me, that would be the one. And then what's the other one?
Perform at your best.
Perform at your best. I got this one. It's party like a rock star, look like a movie star, train like an all-star, fuck like a porn star.
Love that, bro. Awesome, mate.
Thank you.
Good conversation, mate.
Yeah.
If people want to find you, they want to work with you, where can they find your links?
Instagram, Nic Dream Team Edgy. That's Nick with the C.
I'll have it in the show.
Dream
Team
is just a funny name. Don't ask. I know. I take the piss out of it all the time, and I think it's funny. So, just look at that pretty much.
Yep.
Contact me there, or there's all my links on there too as well.
Yep.
So,
Physique Academy.
The Physique Academy on Facebook. But like I said, all my links are on my IG, so that's pretty straightforward. But yeah, I'm sure you'll find those links anyway.
Mate, I'll have all that in the show notes. But mate, thank you very much for the conversation.
Pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's been awesome, man. I've learned a lot and really enjoyed the conversation.
Awesome, mate.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you. Cheers.
And there we have it, ladies and gents. Great conversation with Nic Edgerton, who is a leading physique coach and also has had skin in the game as an athlete himself. If you want to get in contact with Nic, follow the links in the show notes. This episode was brought to you by Be Spunky, which is a male hormone optimization supplement that I've been taking for about a year and a half. It's TGA listed nutraceutical, meaning that it's made from organic product that's found in nature, and all of the claims that Be Spunky has made have been vetted and verified. This episode was also brought to you by Swiss 8, which is a proactive mental health program designed by veterans for the wider community to be able to schedule in and structure their 8 pillars of health and wellness, including sleep, nutrition, time management, discipline, fitness, personal growth, mindfulness, and minimalism. You can download that app and have access to that information straight from your phone. I also have a training program under the Swiss 8 app in the fitness component. All of the links that I mentioned will be in the show notes. Any 5-star ratings and reviews are much appreciated. Much love, guys. Peace.